Hey gang, Pastor Hans here. So good to be with you. Hey, when I was just a little kid, I remember getting my first bicycle. Do you remember when you got your bike? It had a big old banana seat, if you remember those, and some big old handlebars. And I remember being so excited. My first bike. There was a problem though. I didn't yet know how to ride a bike. And so my dad took me out and he did what dads and moms have done throughout history. He taught me how to ride. He first walked alongside me, holding the bike as I slowly learned to pedal and keep my balance. But before long, he was running alongside, still holding on to the bike as I was gaining courage. But eventually, he would point the bike down the sidewalk and tell me I was on my own. And I remember the first time I did it. I went down the street on that sidewalk. I turned around, was able to turn around. I came back. I did great until I arrived back at the house and I realized I didn't know how to stop. And that's when I panicked and decided the only way to stop was to bail. And I crashed hard. Well, it probably goes without saying that learning to stop has been a problem in my life. And maybe the same is true for you. Years ago, I was on a trip in Colorado, and I had the privilege of hiking a 14,000 foot mountain peak. And it was intense, it was tiring, but once we got to the summit, we stopped. We rested, we relaxed, we soaked in the view. Part of the reward of work is stopping long enough to see what's been accomplished. And I hate to admit this, I'm not that good at this. And maybe the same is true for you. Now, I don't have to tell you that life involves hard work. It can be intense, just normal life is tiring. But to think that that's all God intends life to be is missing half of the life that God wants to give you. God invites us again and again to stop, to rest, to take time, because that's when we're able to soak in the best gifts of God. Maybe that's why the author of the book of Mark records Jesus saying, the Sabbath was made for humankind and not humankind for the Sabbath. According to Jesus, Sabbath rest is a gift from God because it's when we stop that we soak in the greatest gifts of God. The author Lynn Bobb has a great quote about rest, which the biblical authors refer to as Sabbath. She writes, Sabbath is God's gracious 5 o'clock whistle that gives me permission to stop and lay down my tools, ready or not. I love that. Sabbath is God's gracious 5 o'clock whistle that gives me permission to stop and lay down my tools, whether I'm ready or not. In the rural areas of the African country of Malawi, only about 4% of the population has access to electricity. So when the sun goes down, people, they head into their huts and are done for the day. It's a rhythm of work and rest that just sort of comes naturally. Of course, for us, with the advent of technology, sunset is no boundary for us. We work around the clock. We're plugged in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But just because we can doesn't mean we should. In fact, living in the 21st century is kind of like being in a jar of muddy river water. Only when the jar remains still will the sediment in that jar drop to the bottom and the water once again becomes clear. Stopping, pausing, resting, Sabbath, whatever you want to call it, it helps us see the gifts of God in our lives more clearly. In pausing, we remember that our significance is not wrapped up in our productivity. When I set my work aside, I'm not Hans the pastor, Hans the leader, Hans the financial provider, or Hans the get-it-all-done guy. I'm simply a loved child of God. And that's enough. So what do you think? What would it look like for you to practice Sabbath? Yes, I said practice. Because just like learning to ride a bike, most of us have to practice pausing, practice stopping, practice Sabbath. And we're going to crash and burn from time to time. But here's what I know. Sabbath is helping me become a better person, a better father, a better coworker, a better pastor, a better husband, a better friend, and I'm a better follower of Jesus because of it.